I never imagined Thanksgiving could feel cold in Florida, but that morning, as I stood in my little kitchen stirring a pot of soup, a shiver ran through me. One that had nothing to do with the weather. My son Daniel had called the night before with a warmth I hadn't heard in years. "Mom, this Thanksgiving, let me take you somewhere nice. Just you and me. You deserve it." His voice was so gentle I held the phone a moment longer after he hung up, letting the silence echo what I thought was love returning to me. For the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to hope. I pulled down my old cardigan from the hook behind the door, the one my late husband used to say made me look cozy like a campfire. I sat at the small round table sipping from my chipped mug while watching the early sunlight dance on the ocean beyond my window. Even after all these years, the view remained the most precious thing in my life, paid for by 2 decades of double shifts, coupon cutting, and shared sacrifices. Daniel grew up here. We grilled burgers on the tiny deck every summer. We fixed his school projects on this very table. This home held more than walls. It held every breath of a life I once felt proud of. Maybe that was why his invitation touched me so deeply. Lately, he had been distant. Short calls, quick visits, always stressed. I blamed work, the economy, the weight of raising 2 kids. Mothers like me always find excuses for the people we love. I didn't tell him I'd spent the past week worrying after receiving 2 strange letters from the bank. Letters I hadn't fully understood. Instead, I let myself believe Thanksgiving dinner might mean things were getting better between us. As the morning stretched on, I decided to make a small gesture. I walked to the pantry, pulled out a can of pumpkin, and baked a pie. Not fancy, but it carried the same smell Daniel loved when he was a boy. While the pie cooled, I wrapped a tiny gift I'd bought at the pharmacy, a keychain shaped like a little lighthouse. "To guide you home," I had whispered to myself as I tied the ribbon. Around noon, my neighbor Mrs. Thompson knocked on my door to drop off a plate of cornbread. She leaned closer and said, "Funny thing, Maggie, yesterday I saw some man looking around your yard. Asked about property values." She laughed it off, but my smile froze. My heart beat a touch faster, though I couldn't explain why. Still, by late afternoon, excitement pushed every worry aside. I picked out my nicest blouse, tucked the lighthouse keychain into my purse, and checked my iPhone twice to make sure the battery wouldn't die. For the first Thanksgiving in years, I felt like something good was finally beginning again, never knowing I was stepping right into the heart of something carefully planned. Daniel's world, on the other hand, was nothing like the calm blue light spilling through my kitchen window. Hours before our Thanksgiving dinner, he sat at the dining table of the small rental house he shared with Megan and the kids. The table was covered in scattered bills, late notices, medical balances, the electricity disconnect warning, each one a reminder of how far behind they'd fallen. He rubbed his temples as he stared at his old MacBook Air, its screen flickering slightly. A spreadsheet filled with debt numbers glowed back at him. Every column led to the same place, desperation. Megan entered quietly, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Daniel, the mechanic called again. They can't release the Camry until we pay at least half." Her voice cracked. Not from anger, but exhaustion. "What are we going to do?" He didn't lift his eyes. "I'll fix it. I have a plan." She paused, sensing there was more he wasn't saying. "Is this plan the same thing you mentioned last week, about your mom's house?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "It's not like that. She'll be safer if I help her manage everything. That house is too big for her. It's logical." "Logical," Megan repeated softly. "Or convenient?" Daniel didn't answer. Instead, his phone buzzed. A message from a number saved as Advisor J. Cooper. "Paperwork ready. Need her signature next week. Make sure she trusts you completely." Megan saw the notification and something in her wilted. "Daniel, don't do something you can't take back." He shoved the phone in his pocket. "I'm doing what I have to do. For us." But the truth was simpler and darker. He saw my small Florida home as a last lifeline. A way out. A way to quiet the fear that stalked him every night. Later, while the kids watched cartoons on the couch, Daniel rehearsed what he would say to me at dinner. How he'd bring up documents, how he'd slide them gently across the table, how I'd sign them without question. He imagined telling me it was just for emergencies. He didn't imagine me asking questions. Megan approached again, holding a plate of turkey slices she'd prepared early so they could have their own small meal before he left. "At least stay and eat with the kids," she said. Daniel sighed, picking up a piece of turkey with his fingers. "I don't have time. I need to meet Cooper before I see Mom." He glanced at the clock. "I'll swing by the restaurant after." Megan reached out, touching his arm. "Promise me you won't hurt her, Daniel." He pulled away gently. "I'm not hurting her, I'm helping her." But even he didn't look convinced. As he grabbed his jacket and keys, a thin Florida rain began tapping against the window, light but persistent, like a warning he ignored. He stepped outside, starting the engine of his borrowed car, and drove off with a single thought pressing on him. Tonight needs to go perfectly. He never considered what might happen if it didn't. Thanksgiving afternoons in Florida always feel a little too warm for sweaters, but I still wore mine. The soft gray one Daniel said made me look like someone who reads novels on porches. I took the bus instead of driving the Camry. I didn't want to risk evening traffic or getting lost in the holiday rush. The bus was half empty, filled with families carrying foil trays and grocery bags. I held the small pumpkin pie in my lap, protecting it like a fragile hope. When the bus dropped me off near the restaurant, I checked my iPhone. No new messages. I assumed Daniel must already be on the way. The restaurant sat tucked between a laundromat and a small bookstore, its glowing windows humming with warmth and chatter. A plastic turkey hung on the door, wobbling slightly whenever someone walked in. Inside, a young hostess greeted me with a bright smile. "Happy Thanksgiving. Are you waiting for someone?" "Yes," I said, smoothing my sweater. "My son made a reservation." She scanned her list. "Table for two under Daniel? Right this way." The table was near the window. A candle flickered beside a folded Thanksgiving menu decorated with little hand-drawn leaves. Someone had taken the time to set everything with care, and for a moment gratitude pressed warm against my ribs. I placed the pie gently on the seat beside me and pulled the lighthouse keychain from my purse, tracing the tiny railing at the top. I imagined giving it to Daniel and him smiling, maybe hugging me the way he used to before life hardened him. 10 minutes passed, then 20. I checked my phone again. Nothing. A server, a sweet girl with freckles, approached with a gentle nod. "Would you like something to drink while you wait?" "Oh, just water, thank you. My son should be here soon." My smile felt stiff, but she didn't question it. Through the window, I watched families arriving in minivans, holding foil pans and hugging tightly as they gathered at their tables. Laughter drifted around me, the kind that comes from people who know they belong somewhere. At the 30-minute mark, the server returned with a small plate of warm rolls. "On the house, so you don't have to wait on an empty stomach." "That's very kind," I said, trying to sound light. He must be stuck in traffic. But inside, something small began to wrinkle, like a note folded too many times. Just before the hour mark, my phone buzzed. I lifted it quickly, heart jumping. But it wasn't Daniel, it was Rachel. "Hope dinner's going well. Send me pictures if you can." I typed, then erased, then typed again. "I'm still waiting for him. Maybe he's running late." As I hit send, a sudden memory crossed my mind. Mrs. Thompson's comment about the man asking about property values, the strange bank letters, Daniel's unusually soft voice on the phone. A quiet, uneasy thread stitched itself through my chest. For the first time that day, I wondered if this dinner invitation carried something more than love behind it. The hour mark slipped by quietly, like someone pulling a curtain without sound. The restaurant lights dimmed slightly as the Thanksgiving rush began to slow. Families were leaning back in their seats, laughing, licking gravy from their forks. Meanwhile, the candle on my table burned low, its small flame swaying as if it too were growing tired of waiting. I tried to keep my face composed, but I could feel the corners trembling. The freckled server returned, carrying a little plate with 2 miniature pumpkin tarts. "These are from the chef," she whispered. "He said you looked like someone who could use something sweet." I laughed a little, even though it came out thin. "If I eat both, I'll have to roll home." She grinned. "Honestly, lady, same." For a moment, her kindness made the empty chair across from me feel slightly less heavy. I checked my phone again. Still nothing. I even tilted the screen toward the ceiling, thinking maybe the signal needed a better angle. Something my late husband used to tease me about. It didn't help. A couple at the next table noticed, and the woman leaned over with a gentle smile. My husband's always late too. Once he missed half the turkey because he wanted to fix the porch light. Her husband snorted. The porch light was dying, just like my patience with that wiring. Their small bickering made me chuckle, but the warmth faded quickly. This wasn't porch light late. This was silence. Thick, uncomfortable silence. I reached into my purse for my reading glasses, but accidentally pulled out a bar of soap I'd bought earlier. I stared at it, confused for half a second, then shook my head with a soft laugh. Well, at least my hands will smell like lavender tonight. A tiny laugh escaped me, but it didn't stop my chest from tightening. A few minutes later, the server reappeared with a cardboard box. If you'd like, I can pack the turkey plate your son ordered. Maybe he can enjoy it when he arrives. The way she said it, hopeful, trying to be helpful, made my throat pinch. Yes, dear, maybe that's best. While she walked back to the kitchen, my phone buzzed. My heart jolted. I grabbed it quickly, but it was just a calendar notification reminding me to water the aloe plant. I almost laughed and cried at the same time. When the server returned, she set the neatly packed meal beside my pie. You know, she said softly, my grandma always says, waiting is proof you love someone. She shrugged, but she also says, not too long, or your love will catch a cold. Something about that made me smile. Painfully, but genuinely. I finally typed a message to Daniel. Just checking in. I'm at the restaurant, let me know you're safe. I stared at the screen, waiting for the typing bubbles to appear. But nothing did. A quiet fear began to settle, not wild or dramatic, but deep and familiar, like a truth I didn't want to see. Something wasn't right, and I was slowly letting myself admit it. By the time I stepped outside, the restaurant had begun turning off its decorative lights. The plastic turkey on the door wobbled one last time as the wind pushed past me. I clutched the pie box and the packed turkey dinner against my chest, trying to keep everything balanced while the night breeze tugged at my cardigan. The bus stop was a short walk away, but every step felt slower than usual. I kept glancing at my phone, half hoping, half dreading another buzz. Nothing, only the dim glow from the street lamp reflecting off the cracked screen protector. When the bus finally arrived, the driver, a man with thick glasses and a Santa hat, gave me a cheerful wave. Happy Thanksgiving, ma'am. Long night? I smiled faintly. Longer than I expected. He nodded like he understood more than I said. As I found a seat near the back, he called out, If that pie disappears, I didn't take it. I let out a small laugh. Don't worry, I'm guarding it with my life. A few other passengers chuckled, and for a moment, the heaviness inside me loosened. Quiet humor has a way of doing that, lifting the corners of pain without pretending it isn't there. The bus rumbled down the familiar road to my neighborhood, passing holiday lights that blinked gently on front porches. Families gathered around tables. Kids ran around yards. Couples carried leftovers in foil pans. I watched it all through the window, feeling like someone standing on the outside of a snow globe, looking in at warmth I used to be part of. When I reached my stop, I thanked the driver and stepped into the cool night air. My little house sat still and quiet, porch light glowing like it always did, steady, dependable, unlike some things. Inside, I set the pie on the counter and placed Daniel's untouched dinner beside it. The silence wrapped around me like an old quilt, heavy and already familiar. I took off my cardigan, draped it over a chair, then turned on the small lamp in the living room. As I lowered myself into the armchair, the exhaustion from waiting, hoping, pretending finally caught up. I reached for the lighthouse keychain still in my purse and held it gently in my hands. I had imagined giving it to Daniel with a smile. Instead, I stared at it now, wondering why he never called, never texted, never cared enough to show up. Then, almost on cue, my iPhone buzzed. My heart jumped. Too fast, too eager. But the screen showed just one line. Sorry. Couldn't make it. Busy. Will explain later. No punctuation. No warmth. Just an empty message sent nearly 3 hours late. I placed the phone face down on the table, pressing my fingertips to my forehead. The hurt wasn't sharp. It was dull, steady, like a bruise forming under the skin. For a long moment, I didn't move. I simply breathed, letting the weight settle. Then, in the quiet of my living room, something shifted. Not loudly, but firmly. I whispered to myself, this isn't just being busy. Something else is happening. And for the first time in years, I allowed that uncomfortable truth to take shape. The morning after Thanksgiving always feels quieter than it should. The world seems to sleep in, full from food and family. But when I stepped into my kitchen, the cold air inside felt untouched, like the house hadn't breathed at all since I returned. The pie I'd brought home sat untouched on the counter. I ran my finger along the edge of the box, then sighed and reached for the mail piled up near the toaster. Most of it was holiday ads, discounts, coupons, cheery colors that didn't match how I felt. Then one envelope caught my attention. My name was printed beside Daniel's, his in smaller letters, tucked underneath mine like an afterthought. The sender was the bank. My stomach tightened. I grabbed my reading glasses, after accidentally picking up the TV remote first, which made me mutter, "Well, that won't help me read anything." The small, silly mistake made me huff a tiny laugh, but only for a second. I tore open the envelope and unfolded the letter. A long string of words stared back at me. Account authorization, joint access, updated status, and phrases that suddenly felt dangerous. I was reading slowly, mouthing each word, when I heard a knock at the door. It was Mrs. Thompson from next door, wearing her usual floral robe and fuzzy slippers, holding a cup of tea like it was part of her soul. "Morning, dear," she said. "I brought chamomile, helps the nerves." She squinted at my face. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I forced a smile. "Just reading some things I don't understand." She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, something she'd done for 20 years, and glanced at the letter in my hand. Oh, banks love their big words. Once they sent me a letter about dormant accounts. I thought they were telling me to go take a nap. I let out a breathy laugh, grateful for her timing. But when she tilted her head and read the page closer, her expression shifted. "Maggie, why is your son's name on here?" I swallowed hard. "I don't know." The weight of those words filled the kitchen. Before I could answer further, my phone buzzed. I grabbed it quickly, hoping stupidly that it might be Daniel finally explaining something, anything, but instead, it was a text from my bank's automated service. Reminder, changes pending for homeowner records. Contact branch if you did not request this. The room seemed to tilt slightly. Mrs. Thompson sat down at the table, setting her tea aside. "Sweetheart, did you request anything? Sign anything recently?" "No," I said quietly. "I didn't." She placed her warm hand on mine. "Then something isn't right." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The refrigerator hummed softly, and outside, a few seagulls cried in the distance. Normal sounds in a suddenly not normal morning. I folded the letter and slipped it back into the envelope. My hands were trembling, not wildly, just enough to betray the fear creeping in. Finally, I whispered words I never imagined saying out loud. "I think Daniel is doing something behind my back." And once spoken, the truth refused to go back into silence. Mrs. Thompson left with a worried squeeze of my hand, promising to come back with blueberry muffins and moral support. I managed a smile as she walked down the porch, her fuzzy slippers slapping the wooden steps like tiny drums. The moment the door clicked shut behind her, the house felt too still again. I sat at the small kitchen table, staring at the envelope. My fingers tapped the edge without meaning to. It wasn't anger yet. Just a quiet, sinking heaviness. The kind that settles in your bones when something precious begins slipping away. I needed to talk to someone who wasn't my neighbor, someone who could make sense of what I was seeing. Almost without thinking, I scrolled through my contacts until I found Rachel's name. The photo next to it was a picture she'd taken from a terrible angle during a FaceTime call last spring, eyes half closed, chin tucked in. She had laughed and refused to retake it, saying, "This is authentically me." Thinking of it made my lips curve just slightly. I hit call. Rachel picked up quickly. "Hey, did you survive the dinner yesterday? Did Daniel make you eat one of those giant turkey legs?" Her cheerful tone softened something inside me. "He never showed." She froze, the tiny screen flickering as she blinked. "Wait, Maggie, what happened?" I told her everything. How I waited, how he texted hours later with a message as empty as an abandoned parking lot. How the envelope arrived this morning with his name quietly sitting right next to mine. How the bank texted. How something inside me felt like it had snapped, not loudly but painfully. Rachel listened without interrupting, her face growing more serious with each word. "Maggie," she said finally, voice gentle but firm. I need you to breathe. And then I need you to gather every piece of paper you have, every letter, every notice, everything Daniel or the bank sent you. Can you do that for me? I nodded, though my chest felt tight. We're going to get help, she continued. Real help. A lawyer who specializes in elder cases. She's careful, patient, and she won't let anything slip past her. A tiny, shaky laugh slipped out of me. I don't want to cause trouble. Maggie, Rachel said, raising an eyebrow, the only trouble right now is someone messing with you. And we're going to stop that. I stood and grabbed my canvas tote bag, the one with a faded flamingo printed on the front. As I stuffed the letters inside, my hands shook again. Papers crinkled, sliding against each other like whispers in a room where secrets had grown too loud. Rachel watched me through the screen. I'll text you the lawyer's office address. And Maggie? Huh? Whatever Daniel is doing, it's not your fault. Don't carry the shame that belongs to someone else. Her words stopped me for a moment. I pressed my lips together, letting that truth settle. Thank you, I whispered. Before we hung up, she tried to lighten the air. And please tell me you didn't eat the whole pumpkin pie last night. I huffed a soft laugh. No, but I was tempted. Well, save me a slice. We're going to need energy for battle. For the first time all morning, I felt something other than fear, something steadier, like a first small step toward standing up again. The lawyer's office was tucked between a dental clinic and a tiny quilting shop, an unassuming strip of buildings that looked like they'd been there since Florida was mostly sand and orange groves. I held my tote bag tightly as I stepped inside, the bell above the door chiming a soft, familiar note. It smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and old paperwork. A receptionist with silver hair and bright red glasses greeted me. Good morning. You must be Maggie. Rachel called ahead. She motioned for me to take a seat. The attorney will be with you in just a minute. Would you like some water? Coffee? We have tea too somewhere, though it may taste like disappointment. Her delivery was so serious I almost didn't realize it was a joke until she winked. A small surprised laugh slipped out of me. Water is fine. Thank you. As she walked away, I exhaled slowly, looking down at the tote bag on my lap. The flamingo design stared back at me. Its bright pink feathers faded into a soft peach after too many washes. For a moment, I gently smoothed the fabric with my palm, grounding myself. Mrs. Harper? A calm voice called. I looked up to see a woman in her 60s, with a warm but steady expression. She wore a simple navy sweater and carried a folder under her arm. Something about her presence reminded me of the school counselors who used to help Daniel when he was young, empathetic but not easily fooled. I'm Linda, she said, extending her hand. Let's talk somewhere quiet. She led me into a small office with soft lighting, mismatched chairs, and a desk covered in organized piles of documents. A framed photo of her hugging two golden retrievers sat near her computer. It made the room feel less intimidating. Now, she said gently, Rachel explained a little, but I'd like to hear the story from you, from the beginning. So I told her. Everything. The Thanksgiving dinner that never happened, the empty chair, the text message that felt like a door closing, the letters from the bank, the envelope with both our names, the automated alert, the fear that crept in slowly, then all at once. Linda listened intently, her hands folded, her eyes focused but never unkind. When I finished, she pulled the documents from my tote bag, adjusting her glasses as she examined them. She made small notes, occasionally humming under her breath. A thoughtful sound, not rushed or worried. After several minutes, she looked up. Maggie, she said softly but firmly, you did the right thing coming here. What I'm seeing is not normal banking paperwork. These forms are structured in a way that could give your son significant control over the property without fully informing you. My throat tightened. I never signed anything. That's good, she said. Very good. It means we can stop this before any damage is done. She tapped one document lightly. This, combined with him placing his name on homeowner notifications without your consent, could fall under financial exploitation laws for seniors. The words felt heavy, unreal. My son wouldn't, I started, then stopped. I wasn't even convinced by my own voice. Linda leaned forward slightly. You don't have to accuse him of anything. My job is simply to protect you. And the first step is securing your home so nothing can be altered without your explicit permission. A wave of relief and grief washed through me at once. Strange companions, but both honest. "What do I need to do?" I whispered. Linda gave a reassuring nod. "Just follow my lead. You're not alone in this, Maggie." For the first time in days, the ground beneath me felt steadier. Linda spent the next hour making phone calls, calm, precise, and firm in a way I could never be. I sat quietly across from her, holding my tote bag like it could steady my heartbeat. When she finally hung up the last call, she gave me a small, reassuring smile. "Your home is protected for now," she said. "The bank froze all pending changes. Nothing can move forward without your in-person approval." I nodded slowly. Relief washed through me, but it wasn't as warm as I expected. It hurt in places I didn't even know were tender. Linda studied me. "I know this is difficult, but you handled it in time." I exhaled shakily. "I just keep thinking, why would he do this? Why not just talk to me?" Her expression softened. "Sometimes people make choices out of fear. It doesn't excuse them, but it explains the path they take." I stared down at my hands, twisting the ring on my finger. "He used to tell me everything. When he was little, he'd run home from school and just spill his whole day." Linda's voice was gentle. "People change, but love doesn't mean letting someone walk over you." Before I could answer, my phone started vibrating inside my purse. The sudden buzzing made me jump so hard my tote bag nearly fell off the chair. I scrambled to catch it, muttering, "Oh dear, don't fall apart on me now," which made Linda bite back a small smile. It was Daniel calling. My stomach twisted. I hesitated before answering. "Hello?" His voice came quick, breathless. "Mom, why did the bank call me? They said there was some kind of freeze on the property. What did you do?" He sounded less like a son concerned for his mother, and more like a man watching his plan unravel. "I didn't do anything wrong," I said quietly. "I just asked questions." There was a long, sharp silence. Then, "Mom, you're making a big deal out of nothing. Those papers were just optional. You're overreacting." My throat tightened. "Daniel, why is your name on homeowner letters? Why did the bank think changes were approved?" He let out a frustrated breath. "I was trying to help. You're alone in that house. What if something happens to you? Don't you get it? I'm doing all this for you." But his voice cracked on the last word. "Not from love, but fear. Fear of losing control." "I waited for you last night," I said softly. The words slipped out before I could stop them, for over an hour. He went quiet again, and for a moment I thought he might apologize. Instead, he said, "I couldn't come. I had things to do." Linda, still sitting across from me, shook her head slowly, encouraging me to stay steady. "Daniel," I said, my voice trembling but clear, "you need to stop whatever you're doing. I've spoken to a lawyer." He exploded. "A lawyer? Are you kidding me, Mom?" "I'm not kidding," I whispered. "I'm protecting myself." He scoffed loudly. "From your own son?" The line felt like it burned through my ear. Before I could answer, he hung up. I stared at the silent phone in my hand, feeling both heartbreak and clarity settle into place. Two truths finally meeting in the middle. Linda's voice broke the stillness. That call told us everything we needed to know. And she was right. It did. 2 weeks later, I found myself back in Linda's office, the same soft lemon scent lingering in the air. The flamingo tote bag hung from my chair, lighter now that the weight of uncertainty had begun to loosen its grip. Linda placed a small stack of finalized documents in front of me, tapping them gently. "It's official," she said. "Your home is secure. No one, not the bank, not your son, not anyone, can make changes without your direct authorization." A breath left my body in a slow, shaky exhale. For days I had been bracing myself for some terrible turn, some last-minute complication. But none came. Linda continued, "There will be a formal review into Daniel's actions. You won't need to testify unless you choose to. The bank flagged the attempt as potential exploitation. The law is on your side." I nodded, though hearing my son's name in the same sentence as exploitation still stung more deeply than I liked to admit. As I gathered the papers, Linda paused. "Maggie, you didn't fail as a mother. You protected yourself. That matters." Her words settled somewhere tender inside me. When I stepped outside, the afternoon sun warmed my face. I walked slowly toward the bus stop, passing the small quilting shop where 2 older women were arguing over whether polka dots counted as festive. The simple bickering made me smile. Life, in all its ordinary colors, kept moving. My phone buzzed. I hesitated before pulling it out. A message from Daniel. For a moment, my pulse quickened. Then I opened it. I heard what you did. I'm dealing with enough already. I hope you're happy. No apology, no acknowledgement, no understanding of the pain he caused, just blame. I stood there on the sidewalk, the traffic humming behind me. For years, I would have replied immediately, trying to fix, soothe, explain. But now, I let the screen dim in my hand. Some silences are not punishments, they're boundaries. And boundaries, I was learning, can be acts of love. Love for oneself. When I reached home, I placed the documents neatly in the drawer beside my bed. Then I sat in the living room, pulling out the lighthouse keychain I had once planned to give Daniel. I turned it over, letting the tiny metal glint in the warm light. Maybe I would give it to my granddaughter someday. Maybe I would keep it as a reminder. A small symbol of finding my way when my life felt foggy. Later, I brewed chamomile tea and stepped onto the small deck overlooking the ocean. The evening breeze brushed against my cheeks, carrying the sound of distant waves. Somewhere down the street, someone was playing soft Christmas music. Lights twinkled on the neighboring porches. For the first time since Thanksgiving, I felt the quiet settle around me. Not heavy, not lonely, but peaceful. A future without fear. A home that was mine. A life that could still grow softer, warmer. I closed my eyes and whispered to myself, I'm going to be okay. And I knew I meant it. Winter in Florida doesn't bring snow, but it brings a gentleness that feels like healing if you pay close enough attention. By early December, the air turned soft and cool, and the mornings smelled faintly of sea salt and citrus. I began walking to the neighborhood park after breakfast, carrying a small thermos of chamomile tea and the Kindle Rachel insisted I learn to use, even if I still pressed the wrong buttons half the time. The park grew quieter as the holidays approached. Ducks drifted lazily across the pond, squabbling over crumbs tossed by children who came and went. I often sat on the same wooden bench shaded by a crooked palm tree, letting the sun warm the top of my hands. Healing didn't arrive all at once. It came in small, almost invisible pieces, like the way the breeze felt less heavy, or how my breath settled a little easier each day. Sometimes Mrs. Thompson joined me, carrying blueberry muffins wrapped in foil. She always sat down with a sigh as though the bench personally offended her back. "We're getting older, dear," she'd say, "but at least our taste in muffins improves." And we'd laugh. Soft, knowing laughter that only comes after surviving something hard. Daniel hadn't contacted me again, but I found a strange peace in that silence. I stopped waiting for explanations and started allowing myself to exist without apology. I learned that love can remain without letting pain stay beside it. I learned that safety, emotional and physical, is not selfish but sacred. One evening, as Christmas lights shimmered across the neighborhood, I held the lighthouse keychain in my hands. The tiny metal tower glowed faintly in the porch light. I no longer saw it as a gift never given, but as a symbol of something rediscovered: direction, strength, self-worth, the permission to protect myself. I slipped the keychain into my pocket and stepped outside, listening to the calming hush of ocean waves in the distance. For the first time in a long time, I felt completely, quietly, home.